When's your birthday? I never had a birthday.
His name is David.
I feel it.
That's creepy. Whoa, that's so real.
In a distant future, in an age of intelligent machines, he is the first robotic child programmed to love and coexist as a member of a family. His is a tale of humanity and a journey to find his place among humans and machines.
I'm a boy.
You are a real boy. At least as real as I've ever made one.
Yes, this week's movie of the week is, of course, AI, Artificial Intelligence. Now, the reason why I wanted to do this film, because there has been some debate over the years about this film, and there's people, it's pretty much been divided right in half. There's people that really love it, and then there's people that really hate it. It's just, I really wanted to get this film out on the table and really talk about this movie because everybody is entitled to their own opinion, I believe. And, you know, if you like something, you like it. If you don't like it, that's fine. But don't criticize the people that do like it, because they may like it for different reasons. It's just that we're all different. Let me give you a little brief synopsis of what the film is about. The film takes place in the near future. We're not quite sure what the year is, but it takes place in the near future. After the polar ice caps have melted, and because everything is running on short supply, basically the planet is dying. It's dying very slowly, but the government has stepped in to legally sanction pregnancies, meaning couples have to basically apply for a license in order to have their own children. If they are not able to have children, they're not. Basically, the government controls whether this couple can have a child or not, due to the resources of the planet. And so there's this company one day that decides that, hey, maybe we can create children, robotic children that will love their parents without question or unstopping. And so they build one child, and it's actually as a test, and it's sent to one worker of the company who has had a tragedy, and so they send him this robot child, and they take the child home, and it warms up to the man's wife. And they name the robot David. David is one of a kind. He's the first child robot that ever loves. Now, there's something else here. The love factor of the film, it will not fully love the parent until it imprints on the child. And the imprinting is irreversible. It cannot be erased unless the robot is destroyed. And something happens, well, let me back up. A miracle happens. Their real son is healed. They found a cure for him because their real son, this couple's real son, has been taken ill, and they had him cryogenically frozen. They were able to find a cure for him, and so their real son is able to come home. And that builds up friction between the robot child and the real child. And so they figure out, finally they had to make a hard decision. The mother has to make a hard decision because she's the one that's imprinted onto David. She's imprinted her love onto David, and David loves her unconditionally and thinks his mommy, calls her mommy, is the best person in the world. But she has to make a harsh decision, and like a real mother, she has to set the robot child, she has to abandon it. And she chooses to abandon it because she will not have him destroyed, because it's that feeling of her children. She will not kill her children. And the whole time, in the meantime, David is on his journey back to her. Now, where the story has an interesting twist is that just before she abandons David, she reads both children the story of Pinocchio. And so David is under the belief that the blue fairy can make him into a real live boy. And so the whole journey is him trying to find a blue fairy and get back to her and make him a real boy. And so the film definitely takes on that new, like a 21st century Pinocchio-like story. And I'm not going to tell you the rest of the story, but the whole journey is to be back with his mommy. And I can't. If you've seen the movie, you know what happens at the end. If you haven't seen the movie, I'm not going to spoil it, so I'm not even going to go there. But some of the criticisms I'd like to talk about this film. When the film came out in 2001, the film was critically praised. Mostly, I know not Siskel and Ebert, but Ebert and Roper gave it a 2 thumbs up. They thought it was a really good movie. And there was several other people that they gave it praise. It was critically praised all the way around. However, when the people did not give it praise. The matter of fact, a lot of people hated it, and there was a lot of people who really liked it, but they liked it after its theatrical run. It really caught a little bit of vibe when it came out on DVD. But over the years, people have criticized Steven Spielberg for ripping off Stanley Kubrick. Now, there's a little story behind this whole story that Stanley Kubrick was originally going to make this movie. He was. And Stanley Kubrick had acquired the rights to a short story back in 1984 called Super Toys Last All Summer Long by Brian Aldiss. And he had really, really wanted to make this movie because he was so in awe of Steven Spielberg. He really wanted to make something that would make a he wanted to make a Spielberg-like movie. And so he actually called up Steven Spielberg and he said, would you like to direct this movie? At first, because Stanley Kubrick himself worked it out and he couldn't make it work. And he said, the only person I know that can really make this movie is Steven Spielberg. And so he called up Steven Spielberg, and Spielberg said, after Spielberg read it, he said, I can't make this movie. It's too dark for me. It'd be perfect for you, Stanley. And so, and Spielberg said, you can direct this movie and I'll produce it for you if you'd like. And he said, no, that's okay. And it went back and forth like that over several years. And then finally, Stanley Kubrick... let me backtrack a little bit. Back in the mid-90s, there was a little bit of go-ahead to start working on AI again. Because Stanley Kubrick had just seen Jurassic Park and thought it was phenomenal. And his intention back in the 80s was to build the robotic boy out of a real animatronic puppet. And he realized that was not going to work. And plus Spielberg talked him out of that real quick. And so he had just seen Jurassic Park. And so he had called Spielberg's supervisor, it was Dennis Muren at Industrial Light and Magic, and they flew out to England and met with Stanley Kubrick. And he had a whole bunch of questions about digital special effects. And they had a long discussion about turning AI into a movie back in the mid-1990s. And the mid-1990s, they were going to make AI, but there were still some things that they couldn't work out, and I think it was because of the digital technology. And they had in mind Joseph Mazzello, who was in Jurassic Park. He was in the last G.I. Joe movie. He's in the miniseries Pacific. The kid. The kid from the first Jurassic Park movie, the one that's a little annoying. He was going to play David originally in the mid-1990s, and they couldn't make the special effects work, and so they ended up scrapping the project. And then later on, eventually they got Haley Joel Osment in the 2001 version. Now, people have criticized this film. Again, they've criticized Steven Spielberg for ruining Stanley Kubrick. And they blame Spielberg on continuing. There's a part in the film that ends. Not ends, but it continues on, and people thought it just went too long. And even some of the film critics criticized that. They said it was too long. And they wanted to blame Spielberg for that. Spielberg himself, matter of fact, I'm going to play a clip here. Spielberg says, in his own words, that was Stanley's idea. So I'm going to play this little clip here from a documentary film that Turner Classic Movies made called Spielberg on Spielberg.
What happened?
I don't know.
We are in a cage.
People assume that Stanley ended AI with David and Teddy underwater, trapped by the Ferris wheel, and that end credits roll. And they're going to be down there until their batteries run out. That's where they assume Stanley ended it, and I, of course, get criticized for carrying the film 2,000 years into an advanced future where the robots they recreated have replaced us, and super mechas rule the world, and it's become a silicon-based society, no longer a carbon-based society. And they certainly assume that that's how I wrecked Stanley's movie, when in fact Stanley's treatment, along with Ian Watson, went right into the 2,000-year future. And this was where Stanley was going to take the movie had he lived to direct it. And this is where I was obligated to take the picture. And even if I didn't feel such an obligation to fulfill Stanley's vision, that would have been my vision as well.
See, it wasn't necessarily Steven Spielberg that did that. Second thing that people really criticize about this film is Haley Joel Osment and his performance. I thought he did a really good job. However, I did have problems with the character. I thought the character of David, I had no problem with him being the robot. I had problems with just overall tone because the way that David is portrayed is he's supposed to be 11 years old, and they portray him as kind of more like a 6-year-old. Yeah, I thought that the maturity level was not up to par. They should have made him 11 years old and be a little bit more mature, child. I know obviously that they wanted to be more, have him do things that a normal child would not do, but I think it would have been really good if they just matured him a little bit. But I think this is what really frustrates me about this movie is that the film, I think, was a brilliant technical film. If you go back and look at the effects on the movie, obviously, yeah, you can tell there's CGI, but I thought it was really, really good CGI. ILM did a fantastic job on the movie, even though they were nominated for the Academy Award for this film, but they lost to The Lord of the Rings, and that was the most popular film on that year. But I think there's people that really just love to criticize Spielberg when this was all Stanley Kubrick's idea. And the reason why Spielberg made it was because he was good friends with Stanley Kubrick, and he really wanted to see his friend's dream come to life. And I think it's a very, very well done movie. Some of the things in the movie is a little silly, like the whole David and Mommy at home sequence at the beginning before she imprints on him. That was I thought that was a little ridiculous. But after that, it just keeps going because it for me, it brought up a lot of emotions. As a matter of fact, I saw the movie in the theater when it originally played in 2001. I was 16 years old. I remember sitting in the theater, and there was actually a point where I actually forgot that David was a robot. I'm sitting in the theater, I'm just watching this child. I actually thought it was almost like a real child going through this emotion until there's a scene where he goes into the Cybertronics building and he meets another David. And it almost, to me, that scene almost came out of nowhere because it's bizarre. First of all, it's bizarre seeing the same actor be twins on screen because it just, for a moment, I've forgotten that he was a robot. But at the same time, that's my emotion. I just completely forgot he was a robot. And then when the chair turned around and you see another David sitting in the chair talking back to the main David, going, and the main David says, "Is this the place where they make you real?" And then the chair turns around, and then there's David number 2 sitting in the chair reading a storybook, goes, "This is the place where they make you read." And it was done kind of in a creepy way. And there's this, and you go, as the scene goes on, he walks down this hallway where he sees all the different versions of duplicates. And he sees, like, there's an Asian one, there's a black one, and they have, regardless of race, they have different hair colors and they have different eye colors, and it's just really bizarre. And then he goes down another hallway, and then there's boxes, and one box has David, and the other side has a girl version called Darlene. You know, it's a movie that some people, I wish, would just take a second look and just and see if your attitude doesn't change. But if not, that's fine. I mean, I'm subject to people's tastes, and this movie is it's one of those movies that either people really love it or they really hate it. There's no middle ground. And I myself really like this movie. I thought it actually turned me back on to Steven Spielberg, and to be honest with you, because there was a period in my life when Steven Spielberg is my favorite filmmaker. But there was a period where he was making movies that I couldn't see, and this was the first movie that I knew I could see, and because of the rating, it was PG-13. It was the first PG-13 movie he had made in, I'm thinking, like 5 years. All the rest have been R-rated. I have since seen those R-rated movies, like Schindler's List and Saving Private Ryan. But it was just something strange and bizarre. One thing I do think did hurt the movie was I felt that the movie came out at the wrong time. They released it in the summer, and I felt it would have played better had they pushed it back to the winter, maybe November. But yeah, that's one of those things. And I think the effects in the movie still hold up. It's, they've since moved on from this movie, but I do encourage to give it a second look. And if you're not pleased with it, don't have to watch it again. It's up to you. But yeah, AI, artificial intelligence. This, of course, is the Blu-ray edition. I did have the DVD version when it came out, but I picked this up because I wanted to watch the movie in high definition. Plus, the DVD I bought was one of the first DVDs I ever got, and it was in full screen, and I didn't know the difference between full screen and widescreen. Actually, widescreen kind of bugged me at first. And then when I saw movies and knowing that you're supposed to watch it in widescreen, I had to have all my movies in widescreen. So that's my little description of AI. From me to you, see ya later.